just how variable it is, how this is actually a really smart, this is a person who has a degree in law and in accountancy. She's very smart, she's able, she's pregnant, she's motivated, she wants to do the best for her baby, and it's still actually really quite hard on the day-to-day. And the consequence of that, I think the important thing is that actually, most of the babies that are born to women with type 1 diabetes are well and healthy, but actually still a large number, and probably too many of the babies, still have complications that might be able to be avoided if we were able to offer better technologies and better support for managing blood sugars both before and during pregnancy. So we know that about 4 in 10 babies are born delivered before 37 weeks, so they have to go into the neonatal intensive care unit, and 1 in 2 of the babies are born larger than babies are to mothers who don't have diabetes. And of course, babies are greedy little things. They suck up all the glucose, they don't care what's left for the mother. So they grow fatter and fatter, and the mother has to balance the risk of having a low blood sugar while the baby's getting chunkier. So really our research in continuous glucose monitoring was to say, could we take a large number of women with type 1 diabetes from the UK, from the US, from Canada, from a range of different countries, in clinics where the teams had some experience with CGM, but also in clinics where they had absolutely none. And what would happen? Would it make a difference to the blood sugar control? And really more importantly, would we get healthier babies and healthier mums at the end of the pregnancy? And I'm going to show you what might look like a complicated slide, but I think anyone here, certainly the people with type 1 diabetes who are using CGM, it won't be that complicated for you, because really what it shows is how much time even motivated pregnant women with type 1 diabetes who are willing to come into a complicated study and come for visits every 4 weeks. And what it shows is that at the beginning of pregnancy, they spend about 50% of their what we call time in range, so 12 hours a day. In the middle of pregnancy, it's not that much better, it's a little bit better, maybe 13 hours per day. And it really takes to right to the end of pregnancy. It's just in the last few weeks before the women to have the babies that they get to this, what we think is the absolute holy grail. They get to 70% time in range. And now it's a tight range for pregnancy, and that's really hard to achieve. But what we could show is that women who had continuous glucose monitoring were able to get to that 70% time in range more often, and much more importantly, earlier in their pregnancies. So instead of getting there just right at the end when it was too late for the baby, they were able to get there in their second trimester when the baby's still growing. So those babies didn't have as much sugar, and therefore they didn't grow quite as big, and didn't have as many problems after birth. So what we found was that using continuous monitoring halved the rates of the babies who were born overweight or obese. It halved the number of babies that had to go to the neonatal intensive care unit and have dextrose treatment for low blood sugars. And actually we didn't have to give it to very many women. We only had to give CGM to 6 women to stop 1 baby having a complication. And not many of my colleagues, and even in our colleagues at NHS Diabetes, they're not that impressed by the clinical results. What they wanted to know is how much money would it cost, and could it save money to the NHS? So in the follow-up we worked out, well, it does cost more. It costs about £1,800 to use CGM or continuous monitoring through a pregnancy, and it only costs £600 to use finger sticks. So who's going to pay for it? Well, actually what we worked out was that we could save the NHS 10 to 12 million pounds per year if we gave every single pregnant woman CGM, because the cost of putting a baby into the neonatal intensive care unit is about £2,500 to £3,500 for a night. So you don't have to stop that many nights to actually be able to give all women who are pregnant access to continuous monitoring. And more importantly maybe is the fact that the women just felt better. They were given, someone said to me, I'm talking about CGM like it's a feminist too, but it just gave women more information about what's going on in their bodies so they could make better decisions. And of course that's equally true for men as well. Probably men can also make good decisions. I can't comment because we didn't study with women. Does all of this matter? The message from from these next few slides, they might look complicated, but it's actually a really simple message. And all it says to you, for anyone who's struggling to get the time and range that they'd like to get, is that every little matters. I know that is used by a common supermarket brand, but basically for time and range, 4% is an hour a day, so 5% is 1 hour 15 minutes. And really the message from our academic research is every 5% matters. So what we showed was 5% difference would make all the difference to the baby, whether or not a baby had a neonatal hypo after birth. This is the not tweetable slide. So these are data that are going to be shown, I think, in the next few weeks at the ADA or the American Diabetes meeting. Some of you might have seen them at our technology meeting in Berlin. But for the first time, they're going to give doctors and patients targets for time and range. So it might be that you're coming along wearing your CGM, you're having this lovely time and range, and everyone's looking at your HbA1c. And moving forwards into the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have much clearer targets, saying to people with diabetes, you're aiming to get as close as you can to 70% of the time and range. We know that won't always be achievable, and every 5% matters. And we know specifically it matters for pregnancy, but we know outside of pregnancy that this is the same message. So we're aiming to get 70% of time and range. That's 16 hours a day, 16 hours and 48 minutes if you're very pedantic. We're aiming to not have any more than 20-25% time above the range, so that's greater than 10 if you're not pregnant, and greater than 7.8 if you are. And then I think the really important bit of this was a lot of work by a lot of people to get a consensus on how much hypoglycemia is acceptable. Probably most of you will say none. But what was able to be agreed on, bearing in mind that all sensors are different and they will have different levels of accuracy when you start getting below 3.9, below 4, there's unanimous agreement that we should be aiming for people not to spend any more time than 1 hour a day below the range. Ideally none, but we shouldn't be accepting much more than an hour. For the very, very low blood sugar level, so less than 3, the recommendation would be not more than 15 minutes a day. I think having clear targets, because as doctors and healthcare professionals, we've always known where to aim for HbA1c, be it 7, 7.5, 8. For the first time now, for all of you who are using CGM, you'll be able to have targets that you can measure and look at day to day, week to week, month to month, rather than waiting to come to your clinic appointments. You'll have to keep them a little bit secret for a few more weeks, and then I think they'll be very widely talked about. So our aim for pregnant women is to get them to this 70% of the time and range as early as possible, but not to beat yourself up if you can't do that, just to be aware that every 5%, every extra bit you help is going to help. We also know that not all women could do that, even the women who had continuous monitoring in our study. And this is actually a mother who didn't have very high percentage time and target, had really beautiful blood sugar control, and she still had a baby that was born with low sugars after birth. And you can see this little baby, this was actually a baby boy. He was born at, I think it was 36 weeks and 5 days, so he was a little bit early. And he spent a lot of his time low, 12, 10 and 8 hours in his first 1, 2 and 3 days of life. You know, we don't know what that means. We don't know if that's just related to sensors not being developed for absolute newborns. Really, no one knows, you know, the accuracy at that very low level is very unclear. But we're starting to use these tools to be able to understand much more about what babies' blood sugars should be in the early days after life. Ooh, that didn't come out very nice. That one's a bit better. They sort of show the same. And this is saying what we've been working on is for the pregnant women who, even with pumps and CGM, who are not able to get to that 70% time and target, would a closed loop or an automated insulin delivery system help them? The first slide that didn't work very well was our first study, and it's 9-10 years ago now, but it's looking at overnight. And as most of you know, if you don't eat and you stay still, it's not so hard to manage diabetes. But really when it starts to get more difficult is if you do these pesky things like snacking and exercising and meals. And what we showed in the second study was for day and night closed loop, we wouldn't necessarily get better or higher time and range than 70 to 80%, but what we could do is do it more safely. You could get to 70, 80% time and range, and do that without low sugars or hypos. Then what we had to do is say, okay, well, it's pretty easy if you come into the hospital and your meals are brought to you and you're sitting in a bed and you don't have to do anything except concentrate on diabetes for 24 hours. What would actually happen in real life when you have jobs and children and other things to do with your days? So in our first study at home, we showed that the closed loop worked really nicely overnight, as many of us would expect. And it did well during the day, but not necessarily better. So we got to 70 or 80% time in the target range, and hopefully safely, without hypos. Where actually it was kind of fun and exciting to use it was right through women delivering their babies. I'm not going to show you any gory pictures, but I think it was exciting to see that women could use closed loop whether they had normal deliveries, whether they had cesarean deliveries. Some of them went into theatre and had to have operations. In one case, one of our women needed to have an abdominal surgery after she had her baby, and they knew if they asked us, we'd say, no way, you can't use your closed loop. So they went into theatre, and her husband, father of the baby, scrubbed up and went in with the anaesthetics team and ran her closed loop while she had her surgery. Very, very happy. I didn't know until afterwards, but her blood sugars, stayed between 5 and 6, and she actually had a really beautiful, healthy baby. And then importantly for the mothers, after they deliver the babies, is a time when all the insulin requirements change. Many women have problems with low sugars, and then, of course, the closed loop system, I think what it really does well is shut off insulin. So we had no problems with newborn mothers looking after new babies having low blood sugars. This was our first ever baby, and yeah, he's quite a cutie. It's quite a while ago, and actually since then I think it's taken us maybe 4 to 5 years of regulatory paperwork and several times my body weight in paperwork to try to get regulatory approval from the MHRA, who are our regulators, to say, firstly, this is important, secondly, it's safe, and thirdly, we really need to now do a bigger study in order to get the sort of evidence that says this can work across a wider number of centres in the NHS. We think this will be safe and beneficial both for mothers and babies, and actually we think it's probably going to save the NHS a lot of money. Again, what do the women like about it? Often it wasn't actually relating to always better blood sugar control. In fact, rather surprisingly, the women who had the highest time in range didn't much like it all a lot, and then the women who thought it was life-changing maybe didn't have as much biomedical benefit. And I think we learned that people like it for a wide variety of actually different reasons. And then some people were concerned that they might get a little bit addicted. One partner said to me he'd go out eating with his wife, they went out on a date, and instead of looking at her phone, she's always looking at her loop, and that's not very romantic if you're out for a candlelit dinner. So I think we're going to have a new, as more and more people start using closed loops, we're going to have more insights into what the actual challenges using it are in real life for people. I personally am not that worried about people becoming de-skilled in their diabetes, because I think that would be fantastic if you could hand more of it over to the machines. This didn't show out, but I love, this is one of Dana's slides, the dear machine, you can take my job, and I feel, yeah, dear machine, you can also take my job. Take the job of people, for people with type 1 diabetes, take the job, as Parker said earlier, of the healthcare professionals. It's a win-win all around. So we're starting, we hope to be starting our study on the automated insulin delivery among pregnant women with type 1 diabetes, which we've called ADAPT. We'll hear if we get MHRA approval in the next 4 weeks. It's taken us almost 5 years of paperwork to get to the point of doing that. And if we do get the go-ahead, we'll be using actually either the Dana or Dana R pump, and the Dexcom G6 and the Cambridge algorithm developed by Roman Vorka. And we hope to be doing it in Scotland actually, so we're planning to have a site in Edinburgh and a site in Glasgow, and it will take a wee bit of time. We'll be very happy to come and share the results of that with you, and I hope you'll all, fingers crossed, there'll be a big woohoo from me that if we do get the FHRA approval finally to start in the next few weeks. In the meantime, thank you all for your support and encouragement to keep going with all the regulatory battles. Thanks a lot.